Hello everyone. So myself Balaji Bharat Mandava. Today I'm into the DevOps space. Today I am going to talk about the DevOps end-to-end life cycle. If you are confused about the DevOps, I just want to explain you, like, based on my experience, what is DevOps. So I want to divide this DevOps into the DevOps life cycle, which has multiple stages. So let us say it I can divide this the whole DevOps life cycle into the 8 stages. Let us say plan, and then develop, then build phase, and then comes the testing phase, then the release phase, then the deploy, and then operate, and then monitor and give the feedback. So now let's talk about the planning phase. So when we talk about the planning phase is nothing but when the any other, like when, for example, the development or the operations team comes up with the requirement. So then about like automating their tasks, then what we do is we understand the requirement. So first what we do is we plan it. So we do the architecture diagram using some draw.io, Visio. So using some multiple tools, MyRobot. So using that we will do the architecture. So once the architecture is discussed internally within the DevOps team and finalized, then we start working on the then we convert this architecture diagram into the Jira stories. So once this Jira stories are created, then we start working on that particular Jira stories. Like we know now, like, what to automate and how the workflow starts and what to do. Then we will understand. Now comes the develop phase. So when it comes to the develop phase, so we need to understand what are the tools the development team is using within the organization. So once we know, like, what are the tools they use, so we already know in the planning phase only. So what we do is we start writing for example, if it is a GitHub actions, we write a YAML script. So suppose if it is a Jenkins, which is a continuous integration tool, so that where there we do the pipeline. So there we write a Groovy scripts. So when we are doing any automation, so if we are using Jenkins, you should be aware of the Groovy. When you are using GitHub actions, then you should be aware of the YAML script. So that's how we start in the development phase. So then we start working as a so first, if it is a new requirement completely, we first need to do the POC. So first we need to understand the tools, any licenses are required, so those all we need to understand, and then start writing the YAML script. So once the YAML scripts are ready, and once the testing is done end to end, so then once the development is done, then comes the build phase. So now for the build phase, we need to understand what are the tools they are using to do the build. Suppose if it is a Java related code, as far as I am aware, we use Maven, Gradle as a build tools. And if it is the .NET, we have the MS build kind of a build compiler tools to do the build. So the from here it comes the artifact. So the packaging happens in the build phase. Packaging is nothing but the code is compiled, and it has the output will come into the different formats. For example, if it is a Java, we get war file, ER file, or jar file. Suppose if it is a .NET, it's a different artifacts we get as an output. So some if it is a embedded, we get different outputs like hex files, A2L, cal. So like that we get a different outputs for in the build phase. So once the build phase is completed, then comes the deploy phase. So now we have different ways to deploy. Suppose if we are deploying in the traditional method like servers, so if it is a Linux servers, we have shell scripts still. And if it is a modern architecture, so now we have the Docker containers, where on the fly we can that container will be created, and in that only we can do the build, get the artifacts. So once the artifacts creation everything is done, then so the deploy also will happen in the Docker, and end to end we can do in the Docker. That is a modern way of doing. If it is a traditional, so we deploy into the multiple servers using shell scripts. We have Ansible as a tool where we can configure to deploy into multiple machines in one go using that Ansible, like the cookbooks. We have different ways to automate that. So that is the build and deploy. So now there comes the once, for example, if you deploy in the development, so still there is a testing environment. So suppose if it is like the IT, if you have the I want to divide about the IT and engineering. Suppose in the manufacturing domain it is completely different the way we deploy. So when I worked on both IT and engineering space, when it comes to the IT space, what we do is we actually have multiple servers like development, QA, UAT, it's like pre-prod, staging, and then we have the production environment. Like that we have different environments. But when it comes to the embedded DevOps, we don't have any such thing called development, prod, like that, because they directly do the testing in the device. So as the device, hardware device is connected to that, so we need to do some flashing, and we need to do some we need to do the flashing on the device, and then once the flashing is completed, then we do the run the test cases. So that is how the testing will be is different from the like the engineering or embedded DevOps space and normal DevOps space. So that is what I throughout my career I understood, that is the major difference. So now let's talk about the testing phase. So testing is different tools we use for different types of testing, and then comes the release phase. So once this is everything is done, then we do the release using, so we create if it is a GitHub actions, we create the readme as a, within the readme only we can create the release notes and we can share it. Or if it is like the traditional way, we can write a release note. So what are the release notes is nothing but what are the additional things or additional enhancements which are going in this particular release, we'll mention in the release notes and we'll send to the stakeholders, so they will understand like what are the like the new things which are coming in this particular software package. So that's how the stakeholders can understand. So this is very important from the stakeholders perspective as for us also. So what we are sending, we will know, and what they are getting, so the stakeholders also will understand. So that's the release phase. So now the release phase is done, and deployment is also deployment phase also I explained. So I will explain each stage in detail, but this is just a high level, like I am trying to divide this into stages and explain in the high level in this particular video. Now comes the operate. So now once this is done, so okay, now everything is happening fine. So now we need to monitor the infrastructure also, where it is going wrong. So we have some tools like Prometheus, Grafana. So what we do is we get the data, like for example how many times this server is going down, or how many times there is a pull request, or any stage, how many times the GitHub action stage is failing. So we will do the monitoring using that. So once that is done, then we will so there we understand like we will monitor each and every stage, like servers, or we will monitor the data or logs. We will see like suppose there is a server, so they are experiencing the slowness at particular point of time, let us say in the peak times like 10 a.m. something like that. So and suddenly it is going down. So why there is a spike? So so they are experiencing slowness, so they will report to us. So using this Grafana and Prometheus dashboards, we'll come to know why there is a spike, how many users are using. So based on the logs, we'll get all this data, and we can identify and we can fix this root cause, so that during the peak time there will be no slowness to the end user. So this is one small example. So there are n number of like use cases for this kind of requirement. So that is a monitor. So once the monitoring is done, then we give the feedback is nothing but at this particular point there is a slowness which the development team or operation team needs to be taken care. So we send a email notification to them, so to the development and operation team, like at this please address this. So based on that email notification, the development or operation team will take care of this particular thing. Hope you like this video. Please do like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments like what actually, so which phase you want to elaborate a little. Thank you.